Hi, everybody, and welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Kat.
So this article is a little bit about how you can kind of use codes to communicate with people, but not like secret codes or stuff like that, but more like to pass important messages.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes you want to tell people information without making sure that everybody around you knows about it. And so if you have sort of different words or different ways of talking about something that are only known to you and that other person, like you can, pass information along. And sometimes the reason for that is because you're in a situation where you're kind of afraid. Yeah.
I was wondering if you and your girlfriend have any.
Codes?
Or little words, stuff that would only mean stuff.
We definitely have inside jokes. And I think when we're abroad, there was one time we tried talking in Mandarin and then Taiwanese when we were in the Netherlands. But it turned out there was a Taiwanese guy on the train with us who understood everything. It was really funny. Yeah.
My wife and I have talked about not so much little words for us, but we're thinking of ones we can teach our son to kind of like questions to ask if a stranger when he's at school or something came up to him and said like, hey, your mum and dad said I should pick you up. And of course he shouldn't trust that person, but he should prove it by saying, well, what did my dad tell you to say?
Yeah,
or something.
exactly. You should have like a phrase, like a passcode.
Yes, I mean...
Yeah.
Something like that. Though I don't think we'd ever use that situation where we would send somebody else, but it's just something for him to kind of make sure.
Exactly.
Know.
And yeah, so in this case, it's more about like people who are in a situation at home where they have a lot of pressure, usually from an abuser. Yeah. So it's a real life way to kind of cope with that, especially during the pandemic. It's been really difficult because there's been a lot more cases of at-home abuse because people are stuck at home. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at the solution that this person came up with, and I think it's really interesting.
Hi. I'm interested in your products. Do you have anything suitable for men?
Of course. We're happy to help everyone find solutions for their skin woes. Can you tell me more about the problem? How long has it been an issue?
It's been getting worse these past few months.
We've got your back. Never fear. I'll ask a few more questions so that I know what to recommend. Now, how does the affected skin react to alcohol? This interaction seems ordinary, but in fact, it is a coded conversation on the Facebook page of Chamomiles and Pansies, C&P. The Polish shop advertises natural skincare products, but it's actually a place where shoppers can get help with something more serious. The skin trouble mentioned in the chat is a reference to domestic abuse, and if someone places an order, C&P will pass their address to the police for immediate assistance. C&P is the inspired idea of Krystyna Pasko, a Polish student. She mentions two primary influences for it. I heard about the increase in domestic violence cases during the pandemic. Then I heard about a French initiative. The French program uses a kind of face mask as a code word at pharmacies. But Pasko wanted to help people stuck at home. She contacted the Women's Rights Center, receiving advice and assistance from psychologists and lawyers. This allowed C&P to be staffed with professionals to better direct people to resources that could help them. This February, Pasko received a major monetary prize from the European Economic and Social Committee and thanked her professional collaborators in a gracious speech. Over 350 people had gotten help from the site at the time, and Pasko was proud to have brought the issue of domestic abuse out of the shadows. The prize money will help the site remain open.
Okay, so let's start off taking a look at this article, and it begins with, this is a written dialogue, a conversation between probably like a Facebook conversation, really, somebody on a site and somebody sending a personal message. And Jan, which would probably be the Polish pronunciation of how to say this, would say, "Hi, I'm interested in your products. Do you have anything suitable for men?" So here we've kind of got, we know it's going to be code by now, so we can think suitable for men. So he's identifying himself probably as a man, and he's saying, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, so he's probably being, abused by a partner. And the shop owner or the shop staff from CMP says, of course, we're happy to help everyone find solutions for their skin woes. So we're talking about skin here because it's basically advertising itself as a skincare Facebook page. And they're saying that people are having skin woes. And of course, even though this is code, skin woes are a real thing. I have some myself. A woe is kind of like a trouble, something that's making you feel like, oh, woe is me is what they used to say like, oh, poor me, I feel so bad, or I'm having this trouble. So your woes, we usually say that in the plural, are your troubles, your problems. Yeah.
So then C&P asks, can you tell me more about the problem? How long has it been an issue? So, of course, they can ask these questions and you could read it and think, oh, skin problems? But really they're saying, tell me more about this abuse. How long has it been an issue? So how long has this problem been going on? How long have you been abused for? And see if you can kind of secretly get some more information in. So that leads to the next sentence.
Yeah, and so Jan says, it's been getting worse these past few months. And of course, if you're reading this uncoded, it means like his skin's been getting worse, but actually it means the abuse has been getting worse.
So C&P then says, we've got your back, never fear. So to have somebody's back means you're going to support them, as if they were going to go into an actual fight and you would kind of stand behind them, protect their back and cover them. But we use we've got your back, somebody has or has got your back in any sort of situation to mean I'm supporting you, I'm on your side, I will back you up if there's any kind of challenge and kind of speak in your favor and speak on your side.
That's right. So if you say never fear, it means like, not that you don't have fear, but never fear is like, here, I'm giving you some courage. I'm telling you to be brave and kind of cheering you on. So they say, the C&P person says, I'll ask a few more questions so that I know what to recommend. So they're trying to find a way to suggest things for the person
and also
to
get more information so they know whether this is like send the police right now or, advise something different. So the C&P asks now, how does the affected skin react to alcohol?
Yeah.
And of course, you can imagine here what they're really asking is your partner, drinking a lot and being abusive when drunk?
Yeah,
exactly. Is it affected? Is this something that only happens when they're drinking, or is alcohol playing a big part in the abuse?
Yeah, exactly. And so, this is a question that, surely Jan has an answer, but we ... it because we can't have the entire conversation. We have to get to the more important meat of the article because this is just an example. And we see in the next sentence this says, this interaction seems ordinary. And yeah, it would if you didn't know it was a code. But in fact, it is a coded conversation on the Facebook page of Chamomiles and Pansies, C&P. So coded, as we've been discussing, means that what you're saying actually means something else, even if it just sounds like ordinary or if it sounds like something that doesn't really make sense. So if you have a code, it's something that only you and another person or a small group of other people understand, so you can talk and give each other information without necessarily alerting everybody else.
Yeah. My wife used to work in a coffee shop and they had a code for if a particularly handsome or attractive person would walk into the shop, they would say, they would call out the names of different orders to kind of make people aware, like, hey, there's a very hot guy who's just walked in. That's stuff like cappuccino or, hazelnut latte would mean certain things.
Oh, nice.
Just to the staff.
That's pretty funny. That's a code for something that's like, a good thing.
Yeah, that's kind of a bit of fun.
for sure.
So we've got chamomiles and pansies here. Both of these are types of flowers. They're groups of flowers.
Yes.
Chamomiles include daisies, and they're often used in teas, traditional medicines, and cosmetic products. Pansies are a group of flowers with, or plants with large flowers. Violets is one example of a pansy. And interestingly, pansies are also known as heart's ease, I found out.
Heart's ease? I didn't know that.
Yeah, heart's ease, all one word. And it's used in herbal medicines because it does kind of bring a sense of calm when you use the essence, those essential oils, those kinds of things.
Interesting. I also know that pansy is kind of an insult to say that somebody is like feminine or weak. It's not used that much anymore, but I think, you know, some people would still be like, don't be a pansy. Yeah.
Old bit of slang, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, C&P is the name of the shop. And of course, you know, if you're advertising yourself as a skincare brand or something marketed toward people who are into like cosmetics things, it makes sense to market yourself with flowers. So chamomiles and pansies. And the Polish shop advertises natural skincare products, but it's actually a place where shoppers, quote unquote, can get help with something more serious.
A note there, we say Polish, and that means it is from the country Poland in Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Don't confuse the pronunciation with the word polish, which is some kind of substance you use for cleaning and making things shiny.
Yeah, or the verb to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So Polish with a big uppercase P is for from the country of Poland, whereas polish looks exactly the same but with a lowercase p. That's a verb to clean and polish something using actual polish, which is a noun.
I do have to wonder if there are people who visit their page actually expecting to be able to order products.
That's interesting. I guess if they do, they probably get a private message just explaining like what's really going on here kind of thing.
Maybe so, yeah.
Maybe they have a few actual things they can buy, but I imagine they just have someone say, this is what this really is. Thank you for your attention, but...
Okay.
So we carry on with a bit more code here. The skin trouble, quote unquote, mentioned in the chat is a reference to domestic abuse. And if someone places an order, quote unquote, C&P will pass their address to the police for immediate assistance. So we can see skin trouble means I'm receiving abuse. I want to place an order. That means send the police right now. And both of these words, skin trouble and order, they are references to what's really happening. So a reference is usually a small kind of a word or a few words that would mean a greater thing. If you were in a document, you might see a reference to something. It's not going to go into great detail. It's just a reference. It says, check out further information in another place kind of thing. You're basically mentioning a thing, but without going into huge amounts of detail. That's what a reference is.
Yeah, so in this case, skin trouble is a reference to domestic abuse. And this is... we'll talk about the word abuse, but domestic abuse specifically is abuse happening in the home. That's what makes it domestic. So domestic refers to things that are happening in the home. And abuse is, as you can kind of guess, it is something very bad that happens to a person when another person is
treating them.
Yeah, hurting them somehow, either physically or mentally or emotionally, or sexually. There's many different kinds of abuse. I don't know if I would say they're equally bad. They can be. They can all cause, significant life problems or even result in death, if you are physically abused to death, and it's really horrible. Nobody should have to go through it. And usually the abuser will maintain a really strong deal of control over the person who's being abused. They'll try and make sure that they don't have any way to get help. They'll tell them that there's no hope for them. They'll make them feel like there basically is no way out, which is why things like this Facebook page are very important. They give you a way out that your abuser doesn't know about.
Yeah, and this is often kind of long-term cruel treatment.
Yeah, it's over and over. Like one time could be considered abuse, but it's not habitual.
Right, yeah, and we're talking everything from kind of simple name-calling to kind of making somebody really doubt themselves to physical hitting and more. And it could be domestic abuse covers parents, children, it covers partners, it covers all family members, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we see if someone places an order, C&P will pass their address to the police for immediate assistance. So assistance, of course, means the same as help. And here, immediate assistance would mean the police would send officers, they'd send a car, they would send people to that property and, find out what's going on, investigate it, maybe get the person who's being abused out and to somewhere safe. If they had enough evidence, they would then arrest the person doing the abusing, all that kind of thing. They'd basically go in there and do their best to solve this problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, this is a very important thing because they're actually getting these people help. They're actually able to contact the police. And so now we learn a little bit more about the company itself. C&P is the inspired idea of Krystyna Pasko, a Polish student. So again, Polish means she's from Poland. And they say that her idea is inspired. In this case, well, you probably know the verb to inspire, which means to give somebody like a creative spark, give them ideas. To say that something is inspired as an adjective means that it's an amazing idea. It feels like it is very original and it's very good. It's very helpful in some way. It's just basically something that you see and you're like, wow, this is really fantastic.
Yeah, flash of genius.
Yeah.
We'll look into where she got the idea from in just a moment, but right now it's time for us to take a short break. Hi everyone, welcome back. So we're talking about where Krystyna Pasko got the idea for C&P, this Facebook page that's really a way to report abuse. Where did she get the idea? Well, she mentions two primary influences for it. So two kind of areas that gave her this inspiration, this idea. She says, I heard about the increase in domestic violence cases during the pandemic. So domestic violence is just one form of domestic abuse. It's the more physical kind. And during the pandemic, as we mentioned in our introduction, this is, of course, COVID-19, where everybody is staying at home. People can't go out. People are trapped with each other with no access to friends or other support, and they can't really escape very well. So there were an increase during this pandemic. Pandemic, of course, is a disease that goes on for a long time and affects countries all around the world, with large numbers appearing all over in many different places.
Which is what has been happening for the last year and a half.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, we are in the middle of this pandemic, and as you can imagine, abuse can really increase during a situation like this because people are trapped with their abusers. And she says the second influence of her for her company, then I heard about a French initiative. And we'll hear more about what the initiative is in the next sentence, but first to learn what is an initiative. An initiative is sort of an idea that you start that is either started by a company or an individual, and it's sort of a plan that you put in place to take a specific action. So you initiate it, which means that you start it, so that's what initiate means. So an initiative is something that you say, hey, we have this problem, we're going to try and use this plan to solve it. This is our new initiative. This is step 1, step 2, step 3, that sort of thing.
Yep, and this is taking place in France, and this is how it works. We see in the next sentence, the French program and initiative are kind of synonyms here. The French program uses a kind of face mask as a code word at pharmacies, but Pasko wanted to help people stuck at home.
Right.
So here they would go in and ask for a particular kind of face mask. They'd say, maybe they'd give the number or the brand name or something, and that would mean I need help, I need some support, I'm being abused.
I also heard that some, like a Dutch supermarket chain also adopted the policy that the French program was doing. So there's multiple countries in Europe that were doing that face mask code.
And certainly it happened in pharmacies. A pharmacy is another word for a drugstore. In the UK, we would call it a chemist's shop. That's what we call them.
Yeah.
It's a place where you can go and buy different kinds of sometimes household goods, but mainly medicines. And some of it is over-the-counter medicine that you could buy, face washes, hair washes, that you could get in a place like Watson's. But they also have a special area of the pharmacy where you get drugs that a doctor has to prescribe you.
Yeah.
So when you see a doctor, he says, here's a prescription, take this to a pharmacy, and they will give you the medication that I've told them to give you.
Right, and there are even clinics in Taiwan that have their own personal pharmacies. Like the medication that I take, the doctor I go to for it has the pharmacy right next door and just upstairs, and they don't sell anything else except the prescribed medications.
Yeah.
So anyway, she wanted to help people stuck at home because not everybody can go to a pharmacy. Maybe their abuser is controlling them, or maybe the situation is so bad that they can't go out. Different people have different reasons for being stuck at home, and they still need help. So what did she do to make this happen? Says she contacted the Women's Rights Center, receiving advice and assistance from psychologists and lawyers. So these two people, these psychologists and lawyers, are both experts in their field, but first we have to talk about what they are. So a psychologist is, you could say, an expert in mental illness or mental health, as well as general human behavior, like how our minds work, how our brains work, why we do the things we do on an individual level. So if you have some sort of mental illness, or if you need some help with something, mentally speaking or emotionally speaking, you might see a psychologist for counseling. They are different from a psychiatrist, which you also might have heard of. A psychiatrist is actually a kind of doctor. They are licensed to give you medicine for like mental illness, like if you have depression or anxiety and you need to take something like Zoloft or some other medication, you will get that from a psychiatrist. They can also provide counseling, but the difference is that a psychologist is not allowed to give you medicine. They can only give you therapy. So yeah, that's what a psychologist is, and they would be able to help people who are being abused because they will definitely have some mental stress from that, if not worse. And then lawyers, of course, are people who are experts in the law, and they'll be able to help with the legal side of things.
Yeah, we also saw a grammar point in that sentence. We've got the word receiving after the comma, introducing the second clause of the sentence. And this is just a reduced clause. We could say she contacted the Women's Rights Center and received, or and she received advice and assistance. But we can shorten that to receiving. And that makes it easier to kind of see the cause and effect or the consequence of what's happened here without throwing in too many unnecessary words. And this is something that we often do in English, just to cut out some of those smaller words that we kind of know are in that place.
Yeah, exactly. We like to be lazy about our language, don't we?
I
think everybody does.
Yeah, it's also important to kind of be brief sometimes. Too many extra words can sometimes lead to a misunderstanding when you could just shorten the sentence and make it easier to follow.
Yeah, and it makes it tiring to read if you have too many words.
So
All right.
We see that this allowed C&P to be staffed with professionals to better direct people to resources that could help them. So lawyers who could explain, right, this is exactly what is going to happen and this is what you can do and these are your options. Psychologists who are going to explain some behavioral things that they can do, can kind of try and understand what's really happening and see the problems that people are having to give proper advice rather than just kind of volunteers. And they will say you could go here. So that could be a legal resource. You can seek police. You can seek a divorce. You could seek protection for children, that kind of thing. Or a psychologist saying you can do these things, you can do these things, try doing these things.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, not all abuse has to end with running away. Sometimes it can be worked out. A lot of the times the safest thing is just to get out of the house. But every situation is different, and that's why it's better to have professionals helping to deal with it. So we go on to learn what was the result of Pascoe's work. This February, in other words, February 2021, Pascoe received a major monetary prize from the European Economic and Social Committee and thanked her her professional collaborators in a gracious speech. So she received a major monetary prize, and monetary is an adjective that just means having to do with money, or it is money, basically. So monetary means you get money if you get a monetary prize.
Yeah, not just like a medal or a piece of paper or recognition. No, there's actually some cash that allows you to keep working and push your goals further.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And she also thanked her professional collaborators. A collaborator is somebody who works with you on a particular goal or on a particular project. Sometimes you're kind of an equal part, but sometimes you've got a leader and their team members. But basically, you've all had an important contribution. You've all worked together on this thing, giving your ideas, taking on different responsibilities and jobs. So these lawyers, these psychologists, they would be Christina's collaborators, and they'd all work together on it. So by saying it's a gracious speech, we're saying she's really recognizing all the help she's got and thanking everybody who's made her idea possible and made it better and made it work for the people who really need it.
And something interesting I learned about this is that this is actually her final Girl Guides project, or as we would say in the States, Girl Scouts. So she got a gold award, I think, for doing this. So it was sort of like a community service award that she was able to get as a Girl Guide, which, if you are doing that in Taiwan, that's something you can consider too. Like, doing something that is good for your community will, benefit you and also benefit everybody around you. Yeah, so other than that, over 350 people had gotten help from the site at the time, as in February when she got the prize, and Pascal was proud to have brought the issue of domestic abuse out of the shadows. To bring something out of the shadows means that, it used to be kind of something that nobody would talk about, or people were afraid of, or just didn't understand. So bringing it out of the shadows is kind of making it something that people talk about openly, making it something that is being discussed, or a problem that is being addressed instead of just ignored. And, kind of bringing it into the daylight. That's what it means.
Okay, and our article concludes by saying the prize money, so that's the monetary prize from this European Economic and Social Committee, the prize money will help the site remain open. It pays the people who work there, it allows them to keep the Facebook domain and page open, and does all the rest to make sure it really does work. Okay, so that is the article. This is a really great idea that somebody has come up with. And we've seen there are several other ideas that are following the same thing in different parts of the world. It's great that this kind of thing's happening. And I would say Taiwan's got the numbers that you can call if you're in the same situation. You need the help, the different emergency numbers. But if it's difficult to do that, I believe there are some ways around it as well if you can't talk or something.
Yeah, I know that, there are sadly way too many cases of domestic abuse here. If you find that this is happening in your home, do not be afraid to seek help. There are things you can do. There's always some way that you can get help. So with that, I think we are done.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
And I'm Kat.
We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.